Makuta Village woke each morning with a quiet magic, as if the ancestors themselves breathed to the dusty air and sunlit fields. The old baobab tree stood in the center, like a silent guardian, its giant roots gripping the earth as elders gathered beneath it to share wisdom, warnings, and stories of forgotten times. Children chased chickens along narrow dirt paths, women carried clay pots on their heads, and the warm scent of firewood drifted through the air. But just beyond the hills, another world was rising, Makuta City, with its bright glass towers, malls, noisy traffic, and a hunger of ambition. Many villagers said, "When pride enters a man's heart, the shade of the ancestors move away." And the contrast between the ancient village and the modern city proved those words true every day. Among the villagers was Baraka, a young man whose steps were filled with arrogance and whose eyes always searched for wealth and status. He believed that only the strong deserved success and often dismissed the poor, the elderly, or anyone he saw as weak. If an old woman struggled with a water pot, he waved her off. If children greeted him, he barely nodded. His mother, Mama Halima, watched him with a worried heart, often whispering, "The foot that kicks the helpless will one day walk barefoot on fire." But Baraka laughed and claimed that such sayings belonged only to the old world, not the city he dreamed of conquering. Meanwhile, on the quieter side of Makuta lived Baba Sefiu, a humble old man who walked with carved wooden stick and spoke in gentle, wise proverbs. His legs were weak, but his mind was sharp. He saw things others ignored. Young people mocked his slow steps, but elders bowed their heads when he spoke. And then there was Amina, newly returned from her studies in the city, graceful, respectful, deeply rooted in her culture despite being educated among tall buildings and modern ways. She greeted elders, helped mothers with water, and laughed easily with children. Her presence carried a softness that the city could never give. Destiny began its work on the morning Baraka took the narrow dirt road toward the rising city, dreaming of marrying into wealth and starting a business. On the path ahead, he saw Baba Sefiu walking slowly, leaning on his wooden stick. Baraka groaned, feeling delayed by what he saw as a burden. "Baba, move a little faster," he said sharply. "I have no time today." Baba Sefiu stopped, his old eyes calm and steady. "My son," he replied softly, "sometimes a road teaches patience before it gives progress." Baraka scoffed. "These old sayings won't feed anyone. Let me pass." He pushed past quickly, kicking up a cloud of dust that settled on Baba Sefiu's clothes and face. The old man simply whispered to the wind, "Pride walks ahead, but wisdom walks behind. One day, you will look back, and the road will no longer be the same." Baraka ignored him and continued toward the city, unaware that this moment, this simple act of disrespect, was the first thread in a destiny that would soon wrap tightly around his life, pulling him into a lesson he never expected. Makuta Village woke each day beneath the watchful eyes of the ancestors, their unseen presence carried in the morning wind that rustled through the sacred trees and ancient cattle paths. The old baobab in the center stood like a great elder, its roots embracing the earth as if holding the village together. Under its wide shade, real elders gathered every sunrise. Lean men with gray beards, women with wrapped cloths, and children who sat close to hear stories that shaped the heart. Yet just beyond the village hills rose Makuta City, shining with tall glass buildings and loud roads where ambition grew faster than maize in the rainy season. Many said, when pride leads a heart, the ancestors would draw their shade, and Makuta itself was proof of this clash between the old world and the new one. In this place lived Baraka, a young man whose footsteps carried the weight of arrogance and whose eyes searched only for wealth. He believed strength belonged to the powerful and dismissed anyone who looked poor, old, or weak. If a woman struggled to lift a water pot, he looked away. If an elder greeted him, he barely nodded. His mother, Mama Halima, watched quietly with fear tightening her chest, often whispering a warning that seemed always ignored. The foot that kicks the helpless will one day walk barefoot on fire. Not far from Baraka's home lived Baba Sefiu, a disabled old man who walked slowly with a carved wooden stick. He spoke softly, always in wise proverbs, and moved with the calmness of someone who saw life clearly. Children respected him, though some young men mocked his slow steps, unaware that wisdom often walks gently. And hidden within the rising city was Amina, a kind young woman finishing her studies. She carried herself with grace, respectful to elders and warm to children, her heart rooted in tradition even as she lived among modern towers. Fate began weaving their paths on a morning when Baraka, dreaming of marrying to wealth and becoming a big man in the city, walked along the dusty road that led to Makuta City. Ahead of him, Baba Sefu moved slowly, leaning on his stick as he tried to cross the narrow path. Baraka clicked his tongue impatiently. "Old man, can you not move faster?" he snapped. Baba Sefu paused, looking at him with calm, tired eyes. "My son," he said, "the road teaches patience before it gives progress." But Baraka scoffed loudly. "Your old sayings will not make me rich. Let me pass." Without waiting, he shoved past, kicking dust into the old man's clothes. Baba Sefu closed his eyes and whispered to wind, "Pride walks ahead, but wisdom walks behind. One day you will look back, and the road will no longer be the same." Baraka ignored him, not knowing that this simple moment, this disrespect toward a man he believed worthless, was the very beginning of the trap that fate had quietly prepared for him, a lesson the ancestors themselves were ready to deliver. Makuta Village lay like an old storybook pressed between the hands of the ancestors, its dusty roads curling through cattle paths and sacred trees where whispers of ancient wisdom floated in the wind. Under the wide crown of the baobab tree, elders gathered every morning. Lean men with slow voices, women wrapped in bright cloth, and children who sat with eager eyes, listened to tales that warned, guided, and shaped the young. Yet just across the horizon, Makuta City rose with proud glass towers, loud engines, and bright malls that promised quick success to those who chased modern dreams. Many youths ran there, believing the future lived only in tall buildings, while the elders murmured, "When pride leads a heart, the ancestors would draw their shade." Among those youths was Baraka, a handsome but arrogant young man who believed power belonged to the strong and wealth belonged to the bold. He walked through the village with his chest high, refusing to greet elders, brushing past struggling neighbors, and mocking anyone he saw as weak. His mother, Mama Halima, often called after him, "My son, do not let pride blind your footsteps. The foot that kicks the helpless will one day walk barefoot on fire." But Baraka only shrugged, dreaming of a rich life in the city. Far from his noisy pride lived Baba Sefu, a disabled old man who moved slowly with a carved wooden stick. His voice was soft but full of wisdom, and he often warned the villagers, "When a man lifts himself too high, the wind will remind him he is dust." Children respected him, though the impatient youth rarely listened. And in the shining city lived Amina, a gentle young woman finishing her studies, her heart still tied to village values even as she walked among tall buildings. Baraka had never seen her, nor imagined that fate was silently preparing to tie their lives together. As the sun rose one morning, Baraka marched confidently toward the city road, dreaming of marrying into wealth and owning a business that would make the whole village bow before him. But his heart carried no respect for the poor, the elderly, or the disabled. Halfway down the dusty path, he found Baba Sefu walking slowly ahead, leaning on his stick. Baraka clicked his tongue in irritation. "Move aside, old man," he snapped. Baba Sefu turned, his eyes calm and steady. "The road teaches patience before it gives blessings, my son." But Baraka scoffed loudly. "Your slow legs and old stories cannot stop my future." Without waiting, he pushed past him, kicking dust into the old man's clothes. Baba Sefu stood quietly, placing a hand over his chest, whispering to wind, "Pride walks fast, but destiny waits patiently. He will learn." Baraka walked away without looking back, never imagining that the man he had insulted, the one he believed worthless, was about to become the very person who would shape, shake, and test the life he dreamed of in a rising city. The sun rose slowly over Makuta Village, painting the dusty roads with a warm golden glow. The ancient baobab tree stood at the center, like an old guardian, its roots twisting deep into the memories of the land. Elders gathered beneath its shade every morning, their voices blending with the songs of birds and the soft cowbells ringing from cattle paths. The wind carried the smell of earth, smoke, and stories whispered for generations. Yet beyond these humble sights, a new world rose in the distance. Makuta City shimmered with tall glass buildings that caught the sun like sharp mirrors. Malls, bright billboards, and rumbling buses filled the air with noise and ambition. Some called it progress. Others said it was a star of forgetting. But Makuta Village stood between both worlds, one foot in tradition, one foot stepping into the unknown. And as the elders often said, when pride leads a heart, the ancestors would draw their shade. Those words were spoken more often these days. Baraka walked along the village road that morning, his head raised high, chest firm, and steps sharp like someone who believed the ground should move for him. He wore polished shoes even on dusty paths, claiming they showed a future. He believed strength was the only truth, and wealth the only power. Anyone without those things was, in his eyes, unworthy of respect. People greeted him with nods, but he barely lifted his chin in return. Some whispered behind him, "The boy walks like the sky belongs to him." Others simply sighed. Inside their small home, Mama Halima watched her son pass by the window. Her eyes softened with worry. "This child," she murmured to herself, "the foot that kicks the helpless will one day walk barefoot on fire." She prayed softly, hoping the ancestors would guide him, even if he pushed their wisdom away. Not far from the road, Baba Sefi made his slow journey toward the marketplace. He leaned on his carved wooden stick, one shaped with symbols of the ancestors and stories of past seasons. Though age had bent his back, his mind remained bright like a flame in the night. He greeted people with gentle words, his voice calm, his eyes carrying years of wisdom. Children loved to walk beside him, asking for proverbs and tales. But the youth who were hungry for fast success often brushed him aside, thinking his slow steps meant a slow mind. Baraka spotted him ahead, moving steadily through the dust. He frowned, clicking his tongue. "Always blocking the path," he muttered. As he approached, the ground fell silent except for the soft tapping of Baba Sefi's stick. "Good morning, young Baraka," Baba Sefi said warmly. "The road welcomes all feet, fast or slow." Baraka scoffed. "Old man, must you always walk in center? Some of us have places to be." Instead of being offended, Baba Sefi smiled gently. "A river that rushes too fast forgets the taste of land it crosses." Baraka waved his hand dismissively. "Keep your old sayings. They won't build a business. They won't buy a house. They won't make a man respected." For a moment, Baba Sefi's eyes dimmed with quiet sadness, but he said nothing more. He stepped aside with patience. Baraka strutted past him, dust rising behind his footsteps. What Baraka didn't know, what nobody whispered, what no one dare reveal, was that Baba Sefi was not just an old villager. He was a keeper of ancestral paths, a man respected by the unseen, a man whose spirit carried a weight Baraka could not yet understand. Meanwhile, in the rising city nearby, a young woman named Amina stepped out of her student hostel. Her movements were calm, her eyes bright with kindness. Though she studied in the modern city, her heart carried the softness of Makuta traditions. She greeted everyone, from cleaners to teachers, with equal respect. She believed dignity was not bought, it was given through actions. Her path and Baraka's had not crossed yet, but fate was quietly preparing their meeting. As the day moved on, the village continued its rhythm, but something in the wind felt different. The ancestors watched silently as Baraka's pride pushed him further from their shade. His disrespect toward the poor, the disabled, and the elderly was not just a flaw. It was a seed that would soon grow into something he could not outrun. The morning sun climbed slowly over Makuta Village, spilling soft golden light across the dusty roads. The air carried the smell of wet earth, smoke from cooking fires, and the distant sound of cattle bells ringing gently. Children chased each other along narrow paths worn smooth by generations, while the elders gathered beneath the giant baobab tree, the tree that watched over the village like an old spirit. Its branches spread wide, as if holding the memories of every story ever told. The elders sat in a circle, leaning on carved sticks and whispering wisdom. One of them lifted his head and said, "These days are changing. Old Makuta still breathes, but the new world walks close behind." His voice faded as their eyes turned toward the horizon, where Makuta City rose like a sharp contrast. Tall glass buildings shining in the sun, malls glowing with bright screens, roads buzzing with cars and ambition. Some villagers admired the city, hoping to chase new dreams. Others feared it would wash away the old ways. Still, both worlds stood side by side, and an old saying echoed to the village like a quiet warning. When pride leads a heart, the ancestors would draw their shade. Baraka walked down the road that morning, moving with quick steps and a lifted chin, as if the world were too slow for him. He believed strength was everything. He believed wealth made a man. And anyone who did not match his ideas, those who walked slowly, those who struggled, those who lived simply, were people he looked down on. A group of boys greeted him, but he only nodded without slowing. Baraka walks like he owns the sunrise. One whispered. Baraka smiled proudly when he heard it, thinking it was praise. Not far away, Mama Halima watched from her doorway, her hands resting on her knees. Her eyes, deep and tired, followed her son's confident steps. "Ah, my child," she sighed softly. "The foot that kicks the helpless will one day walk barefoot on fire." She wished he would listen, but Baraka believed he already understood life better than anyone else. At the other end of the path, Baba Sefiu slowly made his way toward the marketplace. His wooden stick tapped the ground with each step. Tap, 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 like a steady heartbeat. The stick itself was old, carved with patterns and symbols that spoke of ancestors, seasons, and forgotten lessons. Children ran up to him, asking, "Baba, tell us a proverb." He smiled and replied, "Later, little ones. Even the sun must rise before it can shine." People respected him, for his wisdom ran deeper than the wells of Makuta. But the youth who chased the modern world often joked about his slow walk, believing the old ways had nothing to teach them. Baraka spotted Baba Sefiu ahead, walking in the center of the narrow path. He clicked his tongue impatiently. "This old man again, always in the way," he muttered. As he approached, he shouted, "Baba, must you walk in the middle? Some of us actually have important places to go." Baba Sefiu looked up with calm eyes. "My son," he said gently, "the road belongs to all who walk it, whether their steps are quick or steady." Baraka smirked. "Spare me your proverbs. People like me are moving forward. People like you are holding the village back." A quiet sadness crossed Baba Sefiu's face, but he did not reply in anger. Instead, he stepped aside with slow grace. "A river that runs too fast against the stones that shaped it," he murmured. Baraka brushed past him, and dust rose behind him, covering Baba Sefiu's feet. People standing nearby exchanged uneasy glances. Pride in Makuta was not just a bad habit. It was a shadow that blocked the ancestors' watchful eyes. What Baraka did not know was that Baba Sefiu was no ordinary elder. Many years ago, he had been chosen as a keeper of wisdom, one who carried the stories and protection of the ancestors. His silence held weight, his patience held power, and his presence held secrets Baraka would soon confront. Meanwhile, across the border of the village, Amina stepped out of her school building in Makuta City. Her smile was gentle, her steps light, her eyes bright with hope. She studied hard in the modern world, yet her heart remained tied to the traditions of her home. She greeted everyone the same, rich, poor, old, young. She believed respect was a gift that cost nothing but meant everything. Though she and Baraka lived in the same world, they had not yet crossed paths. Fate, however, had already begun weaving their stories together. Back in the village, Baraka continued walking with pride swelling inside him. He dreamed of marrying into wealth, owning businesses in the city, and proving to everyone that he was meant for greatness. But greatness built on disrespect is like a house built on sand. As the sun climbed higher, the dust settled on the road where Baraka and Baba Sefiu had crossed. That simple moment, one filled with arrogance on one side and patience on the other, was the quiet beginning of a storm. And in the unseen world, the ancestors whispered among themselves, watching closely as the seed of conflict took root in the heart of Makuta. The village did not yet know it, but Baraka's pride had begun to walk ahead of him, pulling him away from the shade meant to protect him. The path he chose now would open doors he never expected, and not all of them would lead toward light. The morning in Makuta opened slowly. like an old drum waking from sleep. Soft light touched the dusty roads, shining to the cattle paths and the tall grass that swayed like quiet dancers. The village still held the breath of old traditions. Women grinding millet, children running barefoot, and the smell of firewood rising from clay huts. At the center stood the mighty baobab tree, broad and rooted like a wise elder watching over everyone. Beneath its shade, the elders sat on wooden stools, their eyes gentle but deep with memories. They spoke in low voices, mixing laughter with warnings, stories with lessons. Now and then, one of them would glance toward the horizon, where Makuta City glittered like a mirror of the future. Its malls shined with bright screens, its glass towers stretched toward the sky, and its roads hummed with restless energy. Both worlds breathe the same air, one elder murmured, tapping his stick. But one grows fast, and the other holds history. When pride leads the heart, the ancestors withdraw their shade. Not far away, Baraka walked with long, determined strides. His clothes were clean, his hair brushed back, and his face carried a sharp, proud look. He believed the world belonged to the strong. He believed money opened every door, and anyone who lived quietly or struggled to survive was, in his eyes, a step below him. When children waved at him, he gave them a small nod, as if he were a leader greeting followers. Two young men whispered, "Baraka thinks he's already a great man." Instead of being offended, Baraka smiled. To him, it sounded like respect. Mama, Halima, watched her son from the doorway of their home. Her hands were rough from years of work, but her spirit was soft. She loved Baraka, but fear lived in her heart like a silent shadow. "My son walks too fast," she whispered. "A foot that kicks the helpless will one day walk barefoot on fire." But Baraka never listened when she tried to warn him. He believed she worried too much, and he believed his pride was strength. Far down the same road, Baba Sefi walked slowly with the help of his carved wooden stick. Every step made a soft sound, talk, 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 steady as the passing seasons. His back was bent, but his spirit stood tall. People greeted him warmly. "Baba Sefi, tell us a proverb," a child called. He chuckled. "Even a drum must warm in the sun before it can sound," he replied, making the children laugh. Though his body was weak, his mind carried deep wisdom. He noticed things others ignored. He listened more than he spoke. But the youths chasing the modern world often mocked his slow steps, forgetting that the slowest walker sometimes carries the longest history. Baraka saw Baba Sefi ahead, walking right in the center of the narrow road. His face tightened with irritation. "This old man again," he muttered, always blocking the way. As he came closer, he raised his voice sharply. "Baba, must you always walk in the middle? Move aside. Some of us have real plans." Baba Sefi turned slowly, his eyes calm like still water. "My son," he said softly, "the road belongs to all feet, quick or slow." Baraka scoffed. "Spare me your sayings. People who walk fast reach the top. You old ones are just holding us back." A quiet sadness crossed Baba Sefi's face. Instead of answering with anger, he stepped aside with dignity. "Remember," he murmured, "a tree that grows too proud may forget the roots that hold it." Baraka pushed past him, raising a cloud of dust that settled on Baba Sefi's clothes. Two women nearby watched with troubled eyes. Pride in Makuta was not just a flaw. It was a dangerous spirit that could swallow a man whole. What Baraka did not know was that Baba Sefi was more than a slow-walking elder. He held stories that shaped the village. He knew truths hidden behind everyday life. His staff carried symbols carved by ancestors, warning signs, teachings, and silent power. And the way he looked at Baraka that morning, it was not anger. It was a knowing. Across the border of the village, Amina stepped out of a modern building in Makuta City. Her books were pressed to her chest, and a gentle smile touched her face. Though she studied in the city, she carried her upbringing like a peaceful spirit. She greeted everyone with kindness, security guards, cleaners, rich students, and strangers. To her, respect was not earned by money but given by heart. She and Baraka lived under the same sky, but their paths had not yet crossed. Fate, however, was already guiding their steps. Back in Makuta, Baraka continued walking, thinking of big dreams. He imagined marrying into a rich family, starting a business, and becoming someone people feared or admired. Ambition burned in him like fire, but without humility, even fire can destroy the hand that holds it. On that dusty road, where Baba Sefi stepped aside and Baraka walked ahead with pride, the first thread of conflict was tied. The ancestors, watching silently, felt the balance shift, and though no thunder rolled, no wind rose, and no drum beat sounded, something powerful had begun. Baraka's pride had taken its first step toward destiny, and the destiny waiting for him would test the strength of his heart more than the strength of his ambition. The sun had just begun to touch the rooftops of Makuta City when Amina stepped out of the tall glass building where she attended her classes. She carried her books against her chest, not tightly, but with a gentle care that showed her respect for knowledge. Her steps were light, almost floating, yet firm with purpose. Many students in the city walked fast, pushing through crowds like life was a race. But Amina walked with calm dignity, as if every path deserved patience. The security guard at the entrance bowed his head. "Good morning, Amina." She smiled warmly. "Good morning, Uncle Samri. I hope your night was peaceful." He chuckled. "You always ask that. Most students don't even look my way." Amina's smile widened. "Every person carries a story. We should greet stories with respect." Her words made the old man blink, touched by her kindness. Amina didn't know it, but people in the city admired her for this. She treated everyone, rich or poor, young or old, with the same gentle heart. It was something she learned not from books, but from Makuta Village, where she grew up under the teachings of elders who believed respect was the first sign of wisdom. As she walked toward the bus station, city horns echoed around her. Light bounced off the glass buildings like falling stars. Yet even in this busy place, she carried the quiet soul of the village. When she saw a young girl struggling with heavy school bags, Amina bent down and helped her adjust the straps. "Thank you, sister," the girl whispered shyly. Amina patted her shoulder. "Walk strong. Knowledge makes your journey brighter." Before crossing the street, Amina paused. The smell of roasted maize from a nearby stall mixed with the sharp scent of car exhaust. It reminded her of home, of smoke rising from clay stoves, of evening laughter, of the elder under the baobab tree telling stories of courage, betrayal, pride, and forgiveness. She never forgot those stories. They lived inside her like guiding spirits. She boarded the bus that would take her toward Makuta Village. As she looked through the window, her reflection mixed with the city skyline. Tall buildings merged with her eyes, and behind her reflection, she could almost imagine the dusty roads of her home. "Two worlds," she whispered to herself, "both shaping who I am." On the ride, she thought of her father, who always told her, "A child who forgets the village forgets the ground where her shadow stands." She never wanted to forget. That was why she returned to Makuta often, carrying small gifts, helping elders, listening to their advice. The city gave her knowledge, but the village gave her wisdom. When the bus reached the edge of Makuta, Amina stepped down, her sandals touching familiar soil. Warm dust rose around her feet, almost as if the land welcomed her back. Children ran past her, playing with old tires and sticks. Women carried water pots. Men guided cattle down narrow paths. "Welcome home, Amina," a young boy shouted. She laughed and waved. "I am home, kiddo. Have you been behaving?" He grinned mischievously. "Sometimes." Amina shook her head, pretending to scold him, but her eyes sparkled with affection. She walked deeper into the village, feeling the old rhythms returning. The sound of the talking drum from the distance, the crackle of fires, the murmur of elders under the baobab tree. Her heart rested here in a way it never did in the city. She didn't know that somewhere else in Makuta, Baraka was already shaping his own plans of wealth and power. She didn't know he walked with pride while she walked with humility. And she didn't know that their paths, so different in spirit, were slowly moving toward each other. The ancestors watched from the unseen world. They recognized her gentle soul. They knew she would become a bridge between pride and truth, chaos and harmony. They whispered softly through the wind, though she could not hear them yet. For now, Amina simply breathed in the warm air of home, unaware that fate had begun threading her story with that of a man whose heart was still blind. The sun rested gently over Makuta Village, casting long shadows across the dusty roads where cattle moved slow and quiet. The old baobab tree stood like a silent elder watching over everything. The laughter of children, the whispers of mothers, and the fading footsteps of the past. Makuta was a place where the old world still breathed. Sacred trees guarded secrets, and the spirits of ancestors lived in the wind that rolled across the brown fields. But just beyond the hills, the new Makuta city was rising fast. Glass buildings catching the sunlight like mirrors, roads filled with roaring engines, and young people chasing dreams bigger than their fathers ever imagined. People in the village said, "The world is changing." But the elders always replied, "Let the world change, but let the heart stay clean." It was in this place, halfway between wisdom and ambition, that the story of Baraka began. Baraka walked through the village like a man who believed the ground itself should move for him. Broad shoulders, sharp eyes, and a voice that often carried more pride than kindness. Since childhood, he had been taught that strength earned respect, money earned influence, and only the powerful deserved better lives. So Baraka believed that the weak were burdens, the old were slow, and the poor were simply careless with their lives. A man must rise above them, he often told himself. Only the strong survive. Mama Halima watched her son with worry thick in her eyes. She had raised him alone, working on people's farms, selling baskets, and praying that he would grow into a humble man. But instead, Baraka's heart grew hard like a stone under the sun. Many times she warned him, "My son, the foot that kicks the helpless will one day walk barefoot on fire." Baraka always rolled his eyes and walked away. He believed his mother feared life too much. He wanted the city, the money, the fancy life he saw whenever he visited Makuta City. Not far from their home lived Baba Sefu, a quiet old man with tired eyes and a carved wooden stick that helped him walk. Some villagers said he had once been a traveler, a man who knew the world beyond Makuta's borders. Others said he had suffered betrayal from people he trusted. Baba Sefu never confirmed or denied anything. He only spoke in calm proverbs that left people thinking long after he walked away. Whenever he met young men on the road, he would smile and say, "Pride is a seed that grows into a tree whose fruits are bitter." Most youths respected him. Baraka did not. And somewhere between the village and the fast-growing city lived Amina, a young woman known for her quiet beauty and her respectful nature. She studied in the city, but her heart belonged to her traditions. People admired her, but few knew her deeply. She walked like the daughter of ancestors and spoke like a woman who carried wisdom in her soul. Without knowing it, her path was already tied to Baraka's future, and to the old man he cared nothing about. One hot afternoon, Baraka stood at the edge of the village, staring toward the shining city. "I will marry into a wealthy family," he whispered to himself, "and build a business that will make everyone respect me." His voice carried pride, the kind that blinds a man to his own steps. Mama Halima overheard him. "Baraka," she called, wiping sweat from her brow, "respect is not built on coins. It is built on character." He scoffed. "Mother, the world has changed. Character does not buy land or open doors." She shook her head sadly. "A door open with pride will one day close on your foot." Baraka turned away, irritated. He wanted no more of her warnings. He wanted success, and he wanted it fast. As the sun dipped lower, he walked down the dusty path leading toward the city, kicking small stones as if there were obstacles in his way. And that was when he saw him, Baba Sefu, moving slowly with his wooden stick, struggling to step around a patch of wet cow dung left by a passing herd. Baraka frowned. "Old man, you are blocking the path. Move faster." Baba Sefu lifted his calm, gentle eyes. "Young blood," he said softly. "The road waits for no one, but patience greets every traveler." Baraka clicked his tongue. "I don't have time for riddles." "Move." The old man tried, but his weak legs betrayed him. He stumbled slightly, leaning heavy on his stick. That small delay angered Baraka even more.